Welcome back, folks, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. So I want to end the show with just giving you some things to think about. And these are kind of basic, if I'm being honest, but not everybody that listens to this program has bought and sold multiple homes. And we've certainly got people that listen to this show as a podcast or watch videos online. And so I want to talk about just the pros and cons of buying a house right now in this market. Maybe give you a few things to think about. So we'll start with the pros first. And by the way, if you're thinking of buying a home, reach out to us because we have been working tirelessly at building our list of off-market properties. I guess if you're thinking of selling or buying, ultimately you're going to have to replace that house if you're selling it. So we've been working very, very diligently to accumulate a list of folks that would sell if we brought them a buyer. They just don't want it actively on the market. They're not actively moving, but they would if we can kind of create this domino effect where one pushes down the other, so on and so forth. And honestly, that's kind of been the name of the game over the past few years as inventory has been really low is, what teams, what companies out there have databases big enough to just be the role of connector, be the middleman. This person we talk to wants to sell. This person we talk to wants to buy, so on and so forth. We connect the dots, and wouldn't that be nice for you as somebody that could just kind of skip to the front of the line? That's what we're doing this for. That's why we're working so hard. That's why we have employees that all they do all day, every day is call and find opportunities. So anyways, if you want information on that, 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065. All right, pros and cons of buying a house right now. First of all, pro, obviously you get to build equity in your house, right? The con associated with that is that it might go up a little bit, then it might come down, then it might go back up, then it might go back down. I would like for you to look at your primary residence as a long-term investment, right? If you're thinking that you can buy and then next year sell and leapfrog into a more expensive property, and that is a, generally speaking, sustainable approach to building wealth, I think you're going to find yourself sorely disappointed because if you think about it, you have the cost to buy and you have the cost to sell. You need about 10% growth in the value of your property to make sense out of buying and selling it just to cover the cost associated with the transactions. So on one hand, you're going to build equity over time. On the other hand, I do see prices continuing to go up for a little bit. How much longer? I'm not sure, especially here locally, because we've got so many people moving here, which is, of course, impacting things like our traffic patterns, which have just been lovely. But anyways, there's the first pro and con. Second, credit scores increase with positive payment history, right? So the more you pay on time, the better your credit is. And I know there's been this whole talk, earlier this year about the loan limit price adjustments and the fact that if you have a higher credit score and a big down payment, you're not going to get as much of an incentive as someone with a lower credit score and a smaller down payment. And that sucks. And for good reason. But then again, we are trying to help folks that are just struggling in this market to be able to buy. I'm okay with that to an extent. I'm not okay with the idea that the harder you work on your credit and the harder you work to save money, the less incentive you get as compared to someone that hasn't been able to get to that stage in their life, whether they earned it or they were gifted it or whatever. That's a slippery slope and we don't have time for it. But of course, every time you make a payment on time, your credit score improves. And I would like to think that the more you are responsible with debt, the more you are able to borrow at a lower rate. It's kind of the way it works, right? It's how we've all been raised. Speaking of, payments, your interest payments, your property taxes, they're tax deductible. The other con is that, of course, property taxes and HOA fees are, in fact, a buyer responsibility. And if you're buying something like a condo and there are major issues that are found and you don't have enough money in reserves, then that's more than likely going to result in an out-of-pocket expense to you in the form of a special assessment. And there have been dozens of condos here in this state, many of which in the Tri-County area, that have gone through major lawsuits. And the major culprit is like water intrusion, right? So that's something to be aware of. Or, look what's happening at Dockside downtown. Holy cow. If you don't know what's going on there, just look it up and prepare to be amazed. Obviously, another con to buying a house is that you have full control over the improvements and the upgrades you make, so long as, if you're in an HOA, that they're approved. You can't just go out and paint your house pink and not get the stamp of approval if you live in an HOA with an ARB. Of course, another pro is that homes frequently increase in value over the life of the mortgage. So as you're paying down your debt and as your home is increasing, you're building equity. But again, the con, I think, is that this rapid appreciation that we experienced a few years ago is on a trajectory to slow down and to just normalize. So if you're going to buy a house, buy it because you can afford it comfortably. I like it when people don't stretch the budget and buy the absolute maximum home they can afford. I like people to be fiscally conservative. But it's your money. You do with it what you'd like. But in this market, I do think you also need to take into consideration the fact that if interest rates come down, you can always just refinance. There are lenders out there that will refinance you for up to 12 months after the purchase at no cost. And we've got those connections. So if that's something we can help you with, or any other topic that we've really discussed on this program today, then reach out to me and we'd love to connect. 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065, or listingsincharleston.com. Thanks so much for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. You guys enjoy your weekend.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-888-0065. That's 843-888-0065.